It's been about 3 years now that I've been covering resin printers, and in the last year specifically, I've started to wonder, where do we go from here? With so many similar printers on the market essentially offering the same great results when it comes to actual printing quality, yet each one equally crippled by something daft when it comes to design, I've been wondering, what will the future bring? Are we finally at that point where the technology has plateaued, or is something going to come along which could change the game? Well, the Athena 2 aims to answer that question by providing a lot of what we've seen before, but with a very different approach to the competition. In a good few ways, they've made it a smarter resin printer than anyone else, and I expect some comments saying, yeah, if it's that smart, can it even run Doom? To which I'd respond, it's a 3D printer, why would you want it to run Doom? Anyway, hi, I'm Ross, and this is Fohammer Videos. Okay, first up, it's going to become very obvious very quickly that this is not the printer for everyone, but this is also not a review, it's just a preview. I haven't got a retail unit, in fact I've had 2 prototypes. The first was to provide some user feedback to Concepts 3D who make this printer, much of which has been taken on board, and the second was to try out some of the new add-on accessories. The software on these is still work in progress, but there's more than enough here to at least see or, well, in my case, show the potential. But this time, when we get to the end of the video, in lieu of my usual analysis, once you see what this does and how it does it, I want you to tell me, is this something you're interested in? Let's start outside. The machine itself is fully metal, but the thing I want to point out most is that all of the panels are easily removable, which, as I'm told, is because easy maintenance and upgradability have been important considerations all throughout the design process. It's got an up and over lid, but again, the best part of this feature is that it's got a magnetic frame around the whole edge rather than gaps like other printers. Now, this isn't a complete seal, but it's still far better than most other machines. I'm also quite a fan of this curved front panel. It's a small thing, but functionally you can see your print better than other machines which have overly angled and stickered faceplates and lids. When it comes to ports, the power socket and rocker switch are on the back, and it's also got an Ethernet and RJ11 socket, the latter of which is actually to be used to connect a camera up because this RJ11 outputs a remote shutter signal for camera time lapses. And they do also have an exhaust port, but right now its current location is just a placeholder, and it's going to be moved away from the circuit boards in the final design of the printer. But much like the rest of the printer panels, the whole rear plate can be easily removed, which gives you easy access to install the add-ons. Now, I say add-ons, and I'll cover the add-ons later, but it's worth mentioning that one of the biggest ways this differs in the market is that this is a modular printer. So when you buy it, you can add or leave features as you wish. But unlike some other brands where these initial purchase upgradable parts still require you to buy the original part as well, and then the extra upgraded part, here the printer will be personally configured before dispatch. Basically, this means if you prefer the Pro VAT they offer, you don't also need to buy the normal VAT too, but I'm going to come on to the rest of the options as we go through the individual features. But when I say configured before dispatch, it also may be important to know that with the Athena printers, whilst they're initially assembled in China, they then get sent to the Concepts 3D workshops based in both Canada and Germany, depending on where the printer's getting shipped off to, for both QA testing and, where needed, configured with your chosen upgrades. And I definitely think there'll be a few people out there, probably some of you have been burned in the past by other brands, who do see the value in paying more for this extra effort. Christ, I'm still talking about the ports. Anyway, on the front is a USB port and a click-clack light-up power switch, along with 2 different status lights. On the left is a clear progress indicator. Now personally, I think I'd have preferred if this were horizontal, but do you really care? But it's the Athena logo itself, which is interesting because this has an RGB LED light strip installed, which, well, as any PC gamer will tell you, instantly makes this machine better than anything else. Seriously though, this does have a point. You can configure the default color yourself to whatever you prefer, but it's during prints where it actually has a feature, as it's mostly, well, it's a status light telling you what the printer is doing at any given time. Right then, let's get on with the internal features. let me start with this. Because I've had a prototype, I've so far had 2 build plates. One was smooth and the second one was laser etched. Now, both were absolutely great for adherence. I'll talk about adherence later on in the video, but it was the etched version that was a lot stronger. What I'm being told by Concepts 3D is that the final product will have the etched plate. But I wanted to explain that difference you're seeing in the video up front, because as far as I'm aware, you can't buy a smooth plate. But I bet you any money, if you ask Concepts 3D directly, they'd be able to sort you out with one if that's what you want. The difference that you can actually buy is that you can get the normal plate and the Pro plate. This is kind of the first configurable option. Now, as standard, it will connect to the Z-arm with a bolt and have a traditional leveling mechanism. But it's the Pro plate that switches this up to a compression lever for attachment and removal, and leveling in this case is as simple as adjusting 4 corner screws. But I'm also told that these will be pre-leveled from the factory and should only need adjusting if shipping has caused a change to the leveling. Which can happen, or at least other brands tell us it can happen, but that might just be to cover their arses for poor quality control. Who knows? If you've got an idea, let me know in the comments. Anyway, moving on, the Z-rail mechanism has a ball screw with 2 large linear rails all hidden behind the inner casing, and that casing is to protect it from splashes. The whole mechanism has pressure sensing, and this is where a lot of the cleverness of the printer comes in, so I'm going to cover that more when we get onto the software side of things. The VAT is another area you've got options. Now, as standard, you will get a heated VAT. There's no non-heated VAT option with the printer, but there is a Pro version of the VAT that adds better pour spouts and handles. You know, if you want to pay the extra for better pour spouts and handles. Both also come with PFA release film as standard too, and Concepts 3D are in talks with Chitu Systems regarding a heated hoopat. Yeah, I still hate that name. Now, onto the LCD. The default LCD is a 10-inch 12K screen. We've seen this before in other printers, and this is the screen which Concepts 3D have chosen for the best UV penetration and longevity. There is a 16K option, but I've been advised that this exists for 2 reasons. One is for people who want to change the light source to 385 nanometers for use with transparent and more technical resins, and that is another change you can do on this printer, the light source. And this 16K screen also uses a special yellow polarizer, which is intended to ensure it will last longer too. And the other reason they've got that option is, well, it turns out it's not actually the printer brands pushing these higher resolution screens as much as it is the manufacturers of the screens going gung-ho on the next technology leap. So whilst there are a ton of pre-made 12K screens available, they're actually now out of production and apparently have been for a while. So at some point, 16K will be the next and only screen these brands can buy, at least until the next one comes out, which will be, I don't know, 18, 20, 32K or whatever. So anyway, the point is, this option exists now to ensure that the Athena is compatible with the next generation too. But before I go on, this is something which I think does actually add value to the Athena series. And yeah, this is the Athena 2. You may have heard about the original Athena, but very few people saw it come to market. Now, for more on that story, I'll be doing a live stream with Nico from Concepts 3D to talk more about these machines, what happened with the original Athena, and why all of these specific design choices have been made. So make sure you click subscribe and don't miss that. And I promise only 2 things from this upcoming video. 1, many of you, like me, will learn a lot more about resin printing than we've all been guessing is right amongst the community for the last few years. And 2, you're probably going to really like this guy and what he aims to do in our space. Honestly, watch the video, it's going to be really great. I think you're really going to like Nico. Now, there's a few extra add-ons to cover before we get into the main part of where I think this printer will stand out. 1, there's a camera add-on, which is both for in-app monitoring, yes, they've got an app, and time lapses. And where they've been really clever in this machine is that not only is this a full HD 1080p camera and starts recording when your plate rises out of the vat, it also records a video of the final lift at the end, so you've got the complete print recorded as a time lapse. but also, quite sensibly, they record theirs in landscape orientation too. And this camera also has a built-in light which only comes on when it captures an image, and I've also tested this with a UV meter to ensure it won't actually interfere with any resin curing either. Other add-ons include a chamber heater, which is useful for even cooler climates, and they've also got an air filtration add-on which allows for you to load in your own filtration media. Now for me, and for you when you get it, they supplied a mix of active carbon and zeolite, whatever that is. Apparently this is much better for dealing with resin VOCs than carbon alone. Now this is optional and some people will prefer to use the vent hole, but it's also worth noting that this filter only runs at the end of a print, which the point of that is to ensure that the loaded media lasts longer, and the final version will have a built-in VOC meter to determine when the chamber is clear, so you know after a print when it's safer to open. But the thing I think that really makes this stand out is the software. The software is so incredibly open and super smart. I do not have the words to explain this, which is why I'm encouraging people to stick with us and check out that live stream, because there's just so much here. And I've got to be honest, considering I make videos, settings are very boring to look at. So this is going to be a general overview. Now the UI is nice, it's intuitive, it's sexy, that's one thing, but the machine is very different to everything else I've used. Yeah, as I've said, blah blah, live stream, check that out, but for now, as this is just a preview, let's focus on the intended features. And I say intended because, well, the software's still being worked on. It all works now, it just needs some back-end tidying from this prototype, as I've had to jump through more hoops than a Labrador at Crufts just to get this working at times. I think what people will love the most is what I talked about in my video from Form Next last year. It's got built-in resin profiles based on a number of popular resins on the market. Now, not all of them are on the UI, some of them are on the web interface, which I'll cover in a minute, but the point is Concepts 3D will be taking advice from the community as to which resins they should add as a priority. But even if it's not there already and you've got a different resin, this printer's got a built-in exposure finder feature within the UI, and the final version intends to actually walk you through the results of these tests and calibrating the profile directly on the printer, which I'm sure will get an ooh from many people watching. Like, that's the sweet spot, right? A printer where you pour any resin in, you tell it on the UI, how do I configure this? It then walks you through the configuration, tells you how to read the results, you feed the results in, boom, resin profile dialed in. That's what we want, yeah? But where this differs is, well, this printer works in a different way, a new way. Like, the profiles are on the printer itself rather than in the slicer, and they've got their own slicer, but they also recommend using Lychee as well, because Lychee directly interfaces with the printer's internal memory and configuration. Again, I'll come to that. It's wide and open and complicated, but this is different to what I was used to. Now, I'm a little restrictive to change and difference because, well, it means I need to spend more time learning initially, and I feel like I've learned a lot about resin printers. But the support from this team has showed me in a few ways this is better. There's a lot to cover about that, but again, blah blah, live stream, click subscribe, all that. But the point is, let me just give one brief example, and this is just one of the ways of many that this is better, maybe not better, but at least more correct. Okay, I'm sure most of us are used to printing base exposures anywhere from like 20 to 40 seconds for adherence. I know there are people out there who know that this isn't right. I'm saying most of us. The reason we do that is because of layer compression. This printer has built-in pressure sensors and it has a dynamic wait time. And because of that, I was able to get base exposures down on this to only 7 seconds with absolutely no adherence issues. Now, normally printers will struggle in early layers due to the pressure of crushing the resin so thin, which is the cause of initial layer compression that affects nearly every other resin printer on the market. And I have mentioned it briefly in a few videos. And it's because the plate is trying to compress liquid resin to a thickness of 50 microns or less, and it just can't do that without waiting long enough for the resin to actually settle so everything can be compressed down that thin. Those early layers are normally a lot thicker than they need to be, so we increase the base exposure time to compensate. Are you bored yet? Anyway, look, I'll get to the simple point. For people pre-supporting models, layer compression is an issue we can mostly ignore because the physical defects it causes are in the discardable support area. But there are other benefits too, and I'm sure you can see them. By reducing layer exposure times, this can also prolong the life of LCD panels. And that's just one part of what we want to talk about in the whole journey of this printer. Unlike other printers which have pressure sensing technology as well, all of this is configurable here too. In fact, there's so much configurable in this printer, it can be a little overwhelming, and I haven't even touched the expert mode settings yet. So don't get me wrong, for most users, this should be super easy to use because you don't need to touch much of this. And I love the idea of built-in resin profiles or resin profiles that the printer teaches you how to configure. This machine is quite literally the antithesis of the Haygears approach. It's incredibly powerful, but this time completely open, and with access to so much more here than any other printer I've ever touched. And yeah, I know a ton of people out there are definitely going to like that. Where most printers have enough of a controller board to make sure the printer runs, this has more of a computer. You can literally access it via its IP address in a web browser, send jobs remotely, monitor it, see printing stats, and configure so many variables that it's finally broken resin printers out of the limited feature set they've had, and in many ways is more like open source FDM printers. It puts control of everything in the hands of users, and it actually runs on Clipper firmware. This web UI even has its own built-in slicer, and whilst, yeah, it's limited by speed because it's a web app running on the printer, it is at least nice to see that this exists. For people out there using phones and tablets with no access to a PC, yeah, it's another way this machine becomes more accessible than many others. To give an idea of just how powerful this is, and to answer an earlier comment I made to set up this whole sequence, yes, it's so powerful, it can even run Doom. Yeah, that was a little Easter egg they added in. So there's the machine. When it comes down to it, we're probably all wondering, what's the catch? Well, I said at the beginning, this machine is not for everyone. And I think as soon as people see the price, it will put many people who are considering it now off a little bit more. But in fairness, the parallels between Concepts 3D and Prusa kind of show the real value of this product. I can and probably should make the same assessment of this as I have made for Prusa FDM printers. It is a Western developed machine, and as such, yes, prices will naturally be higher. But like with Prusa machines, the idea here is to purchase one printer which is upgradable in future generations. And they've already said there will be an upgrade kit for the original Athena backers to upgrade to the Athena 2. And the other value is in the customer service, which I just don't have the words to demonstrate. But in the time I've been talking with Nico from Concepts 3D and been a part of their Discord community, I've learned so much more about resin 3D printing than the years I've spent talking with other brands and all of us collectively guessing our way through it in the community. But I guess the question is, if this is not for everyone, who is it for? Well, I think the average hobbyist would more likely want something a bit more budget friendly. That's fair, right? But for print farms or people who want longevity, configuration, easy maintenance, and first language customer support, or more of an investment of a printer you can upgrade in the future, I can see how, again, in a similar way to how Prusa machines have value, this would be looked at as more of a professional product or more of a personal investment than just a one-time purchase of a printer. But as I said in the intro, that's for you, members of the community, to decide. With all the issues we have with other brands in terms of just clarity, support, and general communication, not to mention this yearly iterative life cycle of outdating existing machines, when we look at the whole state of resin printing today without a significant change or print quality improvement, is this something you're looking for? Do you see the potential value here? Is this the next evolution in resin printing? Is this company and ethos something you want to support? Please let me know down in the comments. But again, I implore you, if you are interested in resin 3D printing, please join me speaking live with Nico from Concepts 3D to talk about 3D printing. I already know it will be great to watch and learn from a professional resin printer user and designer who properly understands much more about resin printing than most of us ever have before. So again, make sure you subscribe, bring yourselves and your questions to that live stream coming soon. If you already like the look of this and want to support it, the Athena 2 is available for pre-order now, and I'll drop an affiliate link below the video if you want to check it out. Clicking that link will net me a commission with no cost to you, and another way to support the channel is to become a member like the wonderful people listed on screen now. With a huge thanks to them and you for watching. If you like this content, then please click like and subscribe, and consider becoming a member for early access to future content. Until next time, there are two sides to this dispute. I've only heard one half of the argument. Fohammer out.